Hello again to all you wonderful artists out there. It is your art teacher, Miss Freels, with a new art lesson for the week. So, last week we got to meet the famous artist, scientist, and inventor Leonardo Da Vinci. Today, we're also going to be learning a little bit more about Leonardo da Vinci and continuing to learn about this word, STEAM. In fact, today, we are going to be concentrating on the S in STEAM, which stands for science. So, welcome to week 25, Scientific Illustrations. What a beautiful vibrating sound. So for this week's art lesson, you will be required to go outside and find some objects from nature. So before we get to learning what a scientific illustration even is, this week's art lesson will require you to find at least 2 objects from nature that you will be really observing and drawing in just a little bit. If you have white paper, plain paper, that would be better than a whiteboard today, and a nice sharp pencil, perhaps even some colored pencils. That would be the best materials for this week's art lesson. Now, before you press pause and go on a scavenger hunt outside, number 1, make sure you take an adult with you, or maybe you already are an adult, so that's fantastic. Or make sure you take like a big brother or a big sister with you to go outside on your scavenger hunt. And I'm going to be giving you a little bit of examples of what you could be looking for. Nothing major, nothing huge. The objects that I'm going to show you are things that anybody can find outside, either in your own backyard, in your front yard, maybe in the courtyard of your apartment complex, or at a park, or just take a little walk down the street with somebody. I went in my backyard and I found some very interesting items. I'm not sure which one I'm going to draw yet today. I found a feather from a crow. Ooh, I got lucky with that one, huh? I found a very interesting stone. It has a cool color and it has some really nice like different textures on it. I also found a little wild strawberry leaf. Isn't that just precious? And a beautiful colored plant with some interesting leaves. And I was fortunate enough to even find a beautiful blossom, a flower. Those are just some of the items. You might also find like an interesting stick or a pine cone or even a seashell. In fact, you might even have some of these objects inside your home. But for this week's lesson, try to choose at least 2 interesting natural objects. All right, let's get right into this week's lesson. What is scientific illustration? Remember Leonardo da Vinci? He was an artist, a scientist, an engineer, an inventor, a sculptor, a musician, and perhaps the first scientific illustrator. What is a scientific illustration? A scientific illustration is a drawing or image created of a scientific subject in order to teach and share accurate information. Here is an example of a scientific illustration. These beautiful wild mushrooms. Look how detailed. This is an example of a regular illustration that you might find in a storybook. Do you notice the difference? Scientific illustrations are very accurate and realistic. Although Leonardo da Vinci is said to be one of the greatest artists in history, he wasn't just a painter. He is said to be the very first scientific illustrator. The job of a scientific illustrator is to create accurate representations of something. Leonardo da Vinci was very curious about the natural world. Here are some of his scientific illustrations, over 500 years old. Scientific illustrations really show the connections between art and science. Just like in STEAM learning, using art and science together can help us all understand and learn so much better. So once again, here are some examples of things you might find outside. Remember, try to gather at least 2 natural objects. And in order to become a scientific illustrator, our job is to really look and observe our objects before we draw them. What do you see? What do you notice? Really look for the details. Not only are you an illustrator, but you are also a scientist. All right, I have some beautiful natural objects I gathered from my backyard, and I'm going to decide which ones I'm going to draw. I could actually draw all 3 of them, but if you can at least choose 2 different objects for today's lesson, that would be great. So I think for today, I am going to choose this beautiful little plant, and I think I'm going to try to draw this beautiful blossom. So I'm going to put my little wild strawberry leaf off to the side. I'll draw you later, little friend. And I also have a piece of paper. I have a pretty sharp pencil. It's going to be kind of important for this lesson. I have an eraser. Any kind of eraser can work. And I do have a set of colored pencils. Now, you don't have to use colored pencils. Just colored pencils are so nice because they can create such a nice sharp tip for details. But if you want to use crayons or markers, that's fine as well. Really, the object of today is to learn about scientific illustrations and to really just learn how to look and how to observe things. So what I mean by that is when I look at this flower, I could draw it really quickly. And I'm sure it will be a beautiful drawing, but scientific illustration really requires us to try to draw exactly what we see. We try to draw it accurate. That means we try to make it pretty realistic so that it's actually teaching other people sort of like the science behind these beautiful objects. So, for example, when I look at this blossom, I see many things. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different petals. I also notice the petals have like a darker color on the tips, a darker pink color on the ends, and it goes light pink on the inside. I'm noticing, look at these wonderful, let me try to move this so you can see it. These wonderful little pieces I see in the middle of the plant. Aren't those just magical? And there are at least 5 or 6 of them. And on the very ends, they have a little black dot. They have like a little black piece at the ends. I'm noticing some beautiful lines even in the leaves, like beautiful lines that kind of start from the center and radiate out. I could draw the back side of it as well. It looks a little bit different from this angle, doesn't it? And where it used to be attached to its plant, I see these beautiful little delicate green leaves on the bottom. So I'm really taking my time to observe it before I draw it. Let's check out this plant. You'll be doing the same thing with your objects. You might not find, of course, you might not find exactly the same objects as I do. Now, it might be difficult for you to see this, but this little plant has so many details in it. It's like a reddish, greenish color. It's It's got so many beautiful lines. It's got this beautiful vein right through the middle of the leaves. This particular one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 leaves on it, and a little tiny piece of something right here. I'm trying to let you see the best as I can, but I'm noticing it's almost like the little pollen pieces. It's like a little tiny miniature branch right in the middle. It's kind of long and skinny. So when I draw these objects, I want to draw them kind of large, because otherwise I won't be able to see the details very better. So much, I won't be able to see the details as well. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take my piece of paper and I'm just going to fold it right in half. Okay, you notice that my paper is tall. You can also do it this way and fold it like a card. So whether your paper is like this, you can fold it up like this. We call this the hamburger fold sometimes, or a card fold. I just want you to fold it in half. Press the crease with your fingers. This is so that I make sure I have enough room to draw both of my objects. Now, if you're drawing more than 2 objects, that's totally fine as well. But for today's lesson, I want to just kind of keep it simple, okay? All right. So I'm going to get started and kind of talk a little bit, and then I'm going to go a little bit faster. Okay, I think the best way is, first of all, how do you want to draw? Do you want to draw upside down? Do you want to draw your object right side up, diagonal, flat? This looks pretty good. And I'm going to put it right here on my paper so that I can really keep an eye on it, okay? And I'm using my nice sharp pencil. I hope that you will be able to see the lines well enough. All of my students know we draw light. When we use our pencils, we draw light. That means we draw soft, because so much easier to erase a soft line than if you immediately draw like very hard. So I'm seeing all these beautiful leaves, and I'm just going to go ahead and get started by drawing light with my pencil. I will come back in and draw a little bit harder, and then I will also be adding some colors with my colored pencils. Okay, let's get started. And one last really, really cool thing is that I used an app on my phone to help me identify these 2 beautiful objects from nature. This flower is called an Alpine Rose. So I'm going to identify it by writing the name of that flower. This magnificent plant is called a hop bush. So I'm going to become a scientist and also identify the names of these plants. If you want to take this a step further, you could also identify the different parts of the plants for an extra activity. Thank you so much for joining me today into our journey of scientific illustration. If the weather is nice outside and if you have permission, please, please, please take time to go outside and really observe nature. Our natural world is wonderful and full of so many beautiful surprises if only we just slow down and really observe and take a look. I am excited to see your beautiful scientific illustrations. Please, please, please stay curious, stay creative, and I will see you next week for another art lesson with Miss Freels. That's me. See you later.